Okay, so Gamescom 2025 just finished up, and if you noticed this year, I didn't really talk a ton about Gamescom leading up to its showcase. And that was intentional. I mean, we still talked about it here and there and a few possible game reveals that could maybe show up, but I was very hesitant to build up any kind of hype for this year because I think by this point, I kind of understand what we're going to get from a Jeff Keighley showcase. More than likely, it's going to be an overly bloated event with maybe an interesting reveal or two, but mostly it's going to be throwaway trailers that paid to be there. And frankly, I'd love to tell you all that I was wrong and that this was the best showcase in the world because I would prefer to be excited. I'm passionate about games. I want to be happy about them. But no, I can't say that. Now, I'm not disappointed because I already expected that to be the case, but even still, it does somewhat baffle me how this guy has managed to stake such a large claim on the game industry, all while fans leave underwhelmed more often than not. Now, I kind of blame us for that because, we're the ones that tune in for these showcases, and that's what game publishers and studios see. They see the high viewership as an opportunity to advertise their games in front of millions upon millions of people. So in that way, Jeff Keighley does offer a unique opportunity for game creators of the game industry. But what I think bothers me the most about his showcases is how he builds up the hype. I mean, for the introduction of today's Gamescom, he said, quote unquote, E3 apparently didn't die. It just moved here to Germany. As if he can compare his showcases to E3. And then he continued on to say that this is the biggest opening night live that they've ever done, so let's not waste another second. I mean, they wasted 2.5 hours of everybody's time, but okay, we're not going to waste another second. Like, it's actually crazy to me that he comes up on stage and he says things like that. And he rarely seems to get called out for it, because to compare this mess to E3 is an absolute joke. And to claim that this was somehow the biggest opening night live ever, I mean, somebody's going to have to explain that, because from my point of view, this was actually one of the worst showcases that he's ever done. And that's saying a lot, because most of his showcases aren't all that much better, if I'm being completely honest about things. I mean, let me just kind of put it this way. This was another 2.5 hour event. And I can probably count on one hand how many new games that we didn't already know about that genuinely impressed me. For the most part, there were a lot of games that really came off as generic, and a lot of them more or less just kind of blended in with each other. They looked very similar to one another, which isn't exactly a great look for the game industry. I mean, if this showcase was supposed to somehow represent how exciting the future is for gaming, well, then I think we should all be concerned. And I know I'm coming off as super negative in this video, which actually pains me to say. I'd much rather be excited, because that's one of the reasons that I made this channel in the first place. I love gaming. I'm very passionate about it. And I want to be excited for the future of gaming and to share that passion. I remember going into events like E3 and just how magical those could be, the gamer's holiday, if you will. But that's all the more reason that I get frustrated with Jeff Keighley showcases. I don't think that he shines a great light for the game industry with these overly bloated showcases that were clearly put together with bags of money pushed his way. Now, with that said, there are a few games that are worth talking about, and we're going to go ahead and go over some of those. A new Lego Batman game was announced, and it was actually probably one of the better reveals here, which is kind of shocking to say. I'm not really a huge Lego fan myself, so not necessarily its core demographic per se, but even for me, I thought it looked really good. It reminds me a lot of the Batman Arkham series, which, hey, that's what a lot of Batman fans have been asking for anyways. Rocksteady, they missed the mark with their follow-up series. They just had to make a live service game because of reasons. That seems to be the trend of game failures in today's industry. Keep going at it, I guess. But, here we have Lego Batman, and it's kind of rescuing the day. As an open world to explore, there's multiple playable characters and a lot of throwbacks to the movies, the shows, and even the comic books. So this really seems to be a love letter to the Batman series, and I think it actually has some potential to be one of the better Lego games when it releases next year in 2026. Call of Duty Black Ops 7 also got its first, I'd say, true trailer, not just a teaser this time. And I mean, this game looks over the top crazy. I'll be interested to see how fans react to it, especially given that Battlefield 7, it's going back to the roots of the franchise a bit more, because Call of Duty here, it's kind of going in the opposite direction. It's instead straying away just from being a traditional military shooter. This honestly reminds me more of something like, I want to say Inception. It's very dreamlike with roads going into the sky. There was a giant man, monster-like person, and yeah, it's very sci-fi like. Now, I will say that they did announce 4-player co-op for its campaign, which I believe that's the first time since Black Ops 3, I want to say. Correct me if I'm wrong about that, but that does add some extra value to this year's Call of Duty. So we're going to see how that situation plays out. It'll release on November 14th, as was previously leaked. Now, Xbox as a whole was just very active today. Do keep in mind that they do have some broadcasts planned for this week, so we'll get a lot more info from them in the coming days, but they went ahead and shocked everybody with the announcement that Indiana Jones and the Great Circle will release for the Nintendo Switch 2 next year. They announced this as a part of its DLC reveal, which that's actually going to be out on September 4th for PC, PlayStation 5, and of course Xbox. But this just once again kind of shows you how capable the Switch 2 actually is. I mean, I'd still go into the expectation that it'll probably run at 30 FPS for the Switch 2, but even still, this is a very impressive AAA game from a graphical standpoint, and this actually takes me back to the conversation that we had a few days back. A lot of people were claiming that Microsoft lied about Call of Duty coming to the Nintendo hardware day one because Black Ops 7 is going to miss its day one release for the Switch 2, but no, I don't really think that that's the situation here. I think it's more because Microsoft probably got their dev kits a little bit late. So, I mean, you have to keep in mind that Call of Duty is still playable on the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4. So it absolutely can run on the Switch 2. They're just going to have to get that situation worked out as the generation continues. And I think Indiana Jones is just more proof of that fact. If it can run on the Switch 2, then I'm absolutely positive that Call of Duty can as well. In fact, we are hearing that Xbox is going to be a big partner for Nintendo this generation, with a multitude of games already planned to be announced sometime soon, which now seemingly includes Starfield, or at least according to Nate the Hate. You mentioned that it will come in 2026 as well. Xbox also announced Age of Empires 4 for the PlayStation 5. I mean, I think by this point, most people aren't really surprised by these Xbox PS5 ports. They're clearly having a ton of success on the PlayStation 5. They were the biggest publisher on the PlayStation 5 just last quarter, and yeah, Age makes a lot of sense. This is more of a PC franchise than anything else, and I think they're still trying to grow its console fan base as well. So maybe this will help with that when it releases for the PlayStation 5 on November 4th with all of its expansions. So that's pretty cool to see. Honestly, I really feel like a Switch 2 version would make even more sense, just given that it does have mouse-like Joy-Cons. So, you know, that could be another potential reveal sometime later down the road. I do expect a lot of Xbox Switch 2 games, maybe not in 2025, but definitely in 2026. Then the big highlight game of the day was, of course, Resident Evil Requiem. This was one of the two big names that they used to advertise Gamescom and to get its viewership pumped up. But I'm going to be honest, its second trailer, I thought was both amazing and also kind of frustrating at the same time. And what I mean by that is that the story itself and the visuals, they are seemingly incredible. The character models, the lighting, the mood, everything is very impressive in this specific trailer. I'm already interested in the new protagonist and just how she's going to react to what's about ready to change her life. Capcom previously talked about how they wanted a new character like her because it makes for a more terrifying experience. And I do think Resident Evil is at its best when it is actually scary. Whereas somebody like Leon, you know, I love his games. I love Resident Evil 2 and I love Resident Evil 4, but he is now a veteran and he's not really frightened in the same way. So the vibes that this trailer gives off with the new protagonist and, you know, just how she's reacting to everything, I think was set up in a very interesting way. But at the same time, where my disappointment comes from is that they still haven't shown us much gameplay. And I think that's what most of us want to see. So in other words, we waited for 2 hours through a showcase that I really thought was very underwhelming. And for the most part, all we got was a cinematic. I mean, technically, there was a small glimpse of gameplay. They ran down a hallway and they opened a door, I guess, but that was pretty much it. Now, it's still my most anticipated game. Nothing has changed about that. The trailer was still good, like I said, but honestly, I could have just simply watched this trailer without watching Gamescom, and I probably would have been happier for it. So, it is what it is. Now, before they ended the show, though, they had one of those one more announcement type of reveals, which was for Game Science's next game. Now, if you're unaware of who they are, it's the studio behind Black Myth Wukong, which that game sold at a record-breaking pace for a single-player narrative-driven game when it released last year. It sold more than 20 million copies in just a few weeks, and yeah, it seems inevitable, but it has now been confirmed. They are making a sequel called Black Myth Zhong Kui. Again, though, it was only a cinematic, which, in this case, it does make sense. It's still in early development and probably won't be ready for several years. But if anything, we got its confirmation, and just considering how popular the first game was, especially over in China, I'm sure a lot of people will be very happy about this specific announcement. Overall, though, I'd give this showcase an F. Yeah, there's not really a lot of showcases that I've graded that low. But I'm just being honest about my opinion here. I thought this showcase was really bad. I know some people are going to disagree with that because there might have been a game or two that you may have enjoyed. And hey, that's great. If you enjoyed it more than I did, kudos to you. This is only my opinion. But for me, I'm not grading one or two games. And that's it. I'm grading the entire show. And I think by this point, I'm just done with the Jeff Keighley experiment. I really wish that somebody would step up and give him some competition. We really need E3 to come back. But hey, I guess it is what it is. As long as he has high viewership, then, I mean, this is what we'll likely get. And that's likely not going to change anytime soon because if anything else, he's a good salesman. He knows how to pump up his viewership. So this is probably going to happen for the foreseeable future. But let me hear your reaction and letter grade in the comments below. Do you think I'm just being too harsh or not? Anyways, though, I'm going to call that a video. But until next time, make sure to subscribe, ring that bell, and peace out.